The family of the recently murdered DNC staffer Seth Rich are asking some conspiracy theorists online to back off, at least temporarily, while they are grieving. Seth Rich is a 27-year-old data analyst at the DNC, or was, shot and killed early one Sunday morning last month in what police are saying was a robbery gone wrong. He was killed while walking home in a Washington, D.C. neighborhood that has seen a recent uptick in crime. Now, that's what the police say, and they are currently still looking for information as to exactly what happened, since he died, even though he was alive when he was originally found, and we don't know at this point who the killer was. And some people, I think, legitimately have questions about exactly what happened because it is described as a robbery gone wrong, and yet his wallet and his phone were still on his body when he was found. And so some people do have some questions. Some people go just a little bit farther, and one of those is Julian Assange. You might be familiar from his work, obviously, with WikiLeaks, and he was interviewed recently and about the election and what his organization might do in it, and the killing of Seth Rich actually came up.
In the American political lexicon, there's such a thing as the October surprise. The stuff that you're sitting on, is an October surprise in there? Do you even know what you're sitting on?
WikiLeaks never sits on material. Whistleblowers go to significant efforts to get us material, and often very significant risks. There's a 27-year-old works for the DNC who was shot in the back, murdered just 2 weeks ago for unknown reasons as he was walking down the street in Washington. So
that was just a robbery, I believe, wasn't it?
No, there's no finding. So
what are you suggesting? What are you suggesting?
I'm suggesting that our sources take risks, and they become concerned to see things occurring like that.
But was he one of your sources then? I mean,
we don't comment on who our sources are.
But why make the suggestion about a young guy being shot in the streets of Washington?
Because we have to understand how high the stakes are in the United States, and that our sources are, our sources face serious risks. That's why they come to us, so we can protect their anonymity.
But it's quite something to suggest a murder. That's basically what you're doing.
Well, others have suggested that. We are investigating to understand what happened in that situation with Seth Rich. I think it is a concerning situation. There's not a conclusion yet. We wouldn't be willing to state a conclusion, but we are concerned about it.
So there he's talking about protecting the anonymity of their sources. I don't know if he really understands what protecting anonymity is. If he's saying that that guy's a source, but I'm not saying anything, but there's high stakes, but I'm not saying anything. Now, as of right now, he hasn't confirmed that Seth Rich was actually a source. No evidence has been provided that Seth Rich was actually a source, although we do know that there apparently were sources inside of the DNC, so it is certainly not impossible at this point.
Sources, WikiLeaks sources inside the DNC?
That's what we have been led to believe, at the very least. Now, additionally, WikiLeaks has announced that they will be providing $20,000 as a reward for information leading to the conviction for the murder of DNC staffer Seth Rich.
Well, I'm sure that's going to move some people.
Come up with some info.
Oh, 20G? Oh, I wasn't going to risk my life before, but now
I know
20G.
it's interesting that's the amount
Is
that
that
they're
tax-free, or am I going to have to pay tax on that?
Well, it's almost doubling the $25,000 reward posted by Washington
You
Police.
could almost walk into any car dealership and get a Civic, almost.
Almost, okay. Don't spec it out too high.
Right, but I'm saying now, you have $45,000. I mean, that could, if it was a robbery, that could move somebody to.
That's true.
Oh yeah, if it was just a robbery.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, if it was just a robbery.
Yeah. So,
But what do you think? But they didn't take his wallet, right? Didn't you tell us that?
Yeah, but
apparently they did not take his wallet.
Right, but I mean,
Maybe they checked the wrong pocket. Maybe they're bad.
No, I'm saying that when you have a robbery and then you end, and the guy, if he was, let's presume it was a robbery for a second. I don't have any idea.
Okay.
So
there were other injuries aside from him being shot in the back.
He runs, and you panic. You don't want to shoot anybody. You shoot somebody in a neighborhood, and then he dies, or he's shot on the ground. So you don't really go through the wallet. You run. It's what happens in a robbery gone wrong. Is what I have to do. I just shot somebody, and now I run.
Yeah.
So it's. I mean, there are plenty of crimes where people get shot and their wallet is not gone. It's worth, obviously, that is an angle of investigation that would be taken incredibly seriously, that the wallet is still there, but it doesn't mean that it wasn't a robbery.
What do you think about him implying pretty transparently that he was his source?
I don't want to say what I think of Julian
that he was
Assange
murdered
on a TYT episode.
Yeah. So not only implying that he was a source, but implying that he was apparently murdered because of the information that he shared, heavily implying that.
Yeah,
it's not impossible. It's certainly not impossible, but there's no direct evidence that that's the case. And this is not a guy that just exists floating through the ether with no connection to the real world. As I'm about to read, he has a family, he has friends who don't necessarily want to hear, weeks into their grieving process, that he was apparently murdered by Hillary Clinton because he shared information about her campaign, which is not directly what Julian Assange is saying there, but that is what he is hoping to get you to think.
By the way,
So
if that's true,
implying.
I'm going to vote for Jill Stein.
if she killed him,
I just want to go out on a limb there. That's all.
I'm still
Gotta
going to
bite
Gary.
the bullet.
At some point.
I'm
yeah.
still going to Gary Johnson.
You are?
Higher in the polls right now. Totally kidding. So look, this is the message that was put out by the family. The family welcomes any and all information that could lead to the identification of the individuals responsible, and certainly welcomes contributions that could lead to new avenues of investigation. That said, some are attempting to politicize this horrible tragedy, and in their attempts to do so, are actually causing more harm than good and impeding on the ability for law enforcement to properly do their job. For the sake of finding Seth's killer and for the sake of giving the family the space they need at this terrible time, they're asking for the public to refrain from pushing unproven and harmful theories about Seth's murder. And also, look, this is maybe a side note or whatever, but when he was asked about the possibility for an October surprise and he responded, "We never sit on information," well, that's demonstrably untrue. I mean, look, they've released extremely damaging, apparently accurate information that has already affected the election, and they announced far ahead of time that they were going to. He's already announced that he has more information, so they are sitting on information. Whether it's accurate, whether it's inaccurate, that's simply a lie to say that they don't sit on information.
The role of WikiLeaks in an open society is probably vital, and especially as a society has gotten less open. But that guy's full of shit. And if you don't see it, you don't understand people. That guy's full of shit.
I just feel like whether he's full of shit or not is kind of irrelevant, because I think that
Not in this
whistleblower.
specific case, but in overall, maybe, yeah.
No, I feel like even in this specific case, because he can allege or imply anything he wants. At the end of the day, what matters the most is an investigation. What matters the most is whether or not there is information out there to prove or deny what he's alleging there. And so if he's saying, hey, we're offering X amount of money in order to get some more information on what happened during this case, I'm fine with that. It's okay.
Well, but to be fair, that came after heavily implying he was murdered for what he did for WikiLeaks.
I know, I get it.
And this story has spread. A lot of people believe this. Now, they don't all believe it because of Julian Assange, but Julian Assange is a person who, thanks to his contributions, the raw data that he's released, has generated, especially on the left, quite a bit of respect over the past few years. And so many people believe that this guy was murdered based on the credibility of Julian Assange.
Because I mean, it's no different than it's Donald Trump saying, "Show me you haven't showed me your college records. You haven't showed me that you didn't check a box where you said you weren't born in America, right? You haven't proven to me you haven't released your long form birth certificate. So I mean, you're asking people to disprove a negative. I mean, I don't know anything about this case. The overwhelming likelihood is it's why anybody gets murdered in a city, right? That it's not a movie. But I don't know. I guess it could be. I presume if there's anything like a diligent cop working it, then they'll have the story of the century. But basically, what he's doing is just sort of feeding this frenzy of asking people to disprove a negative, and so then we sit around here in general and all over the world, people sit around dumb tables like this and say, well, I guess they should just investigate it. I mean, he has nothing unless he has something, and if he has something, well, then he's sitting on it, right?
I guess the something would be if he did say, yes, he was our source, right? But for some reason, he doesn't want to say that.
No, but even then, sources to WikiLeaks can be murdered in a dangerous city.
Oh.
It would seem
don't
more
say
suspicious.
anything. Then don't go on the show. Then don't talk about this. I mean, then you protect your source in the way that anybody would protect their source. And you don't get on TV and wink